Shinobu is a pretty young woman with large compound eyes of dark purple color, similar to that of insects. She has black wavy hair that fades to dark purple, styled at the back of her head into a flat yakai maki bun. If you observe Shinobu, you'll find an easygoing smile on her face, regardless of the situation she's in. She's quite powerful and skilled in combat when it comes to her fighting techniques. She uses creativity, ingenuity, and other natural abilities to decapitate demons. Instead of traditional methods of decapitating a demon with a Nichiren sword, Shinobu opts to use a modified version of a katana that acts as a stinger to inject lethal wisteria poison that's poisonous to demons. Shinobu carries her heavily modified Nichiren katana forged by Teichin Kawahara as her primary weapon. She was born as the youngest daughter within the Kocho household, living alongside her mother, father, and older sister Kanae Kocho. She was raised in a loving and caring household until her parents were slaughtered by demons right before her and her sister's eyes. Just when the demon was about to take the lives of her and her sister as well, they were saved by the Hashira Gyome Himejima, who slayed the demon. Now more determined as a result of the pain and suffering they endured, Shinobu and Kanae both promised to become demon slayers to protect each other, as well as preventing other people from enduring the same losses they had to experience. Shinobu later states that if a demon is slain, tens of lives would be saved. She mentioned that defeating an upper rank would save hundreds of lives. Eventually, after managing to move a boulder, they convinced Himejima to introduce them to a cultivator. Later in her life, while accompanying her sister Kanae on a trip, the sisters encountered a young girl being led away as a slave on a bridge. Intrigued by her, Kanae took interest and decided to take the girl back to the butterfly estate, against Shinobu's initial wishes. They eventually purchased the girl, named Kanao Tsuyuri, from her master, and trained her within the butterfly estate to become the next Tsukugo. At the age of 14, she became the master of the butterfly estate in Kanae's place, since Kanae died at age 17. Shinobu coddled the girls of the butterfly estate as if they were her own little sisters. Mount Natagumo Arc. Shinobu is present when Kagaya Ubuyashiki receives news of the situation unfolding at Mount Natagumo, and is given the order to travel there and assist the lower-ranked swordsmen. Acknowledging this, the Hashira states that it would be great if everyone could get along, regardless if they're human or demon, and asks Giyu Tomioka if he agrees. Much later, Shinobu appears before a heavily injured Zenitsu Agatsuma, greeting him and asking him if he's alright. She then suddenly appears behind the daughter member of Rui's demon family, inquiring if the strings came out of her palms, wishing the creature a good evening, and commenting on the beauty of the moon that night. Startled, the demon attacks the demon slayer with her strings, but Shinobu dodges them all effortlessly. Drawing her sword, Shinobu dryly comments that this attack means that the demon doesn't want to get along with her. The daughter demon quickly begs Shinobu for mercy, stating that she'd be killed if she disobeyed Rui. Shinobu, sympathizing with the creature's plight, says that she'd cooperate with the demon if she answers a few of Shinobu's questions, the first of which being how many people she'd killed. The demon's answer is 5, but Shinobu assures her that she doesn't have to lie, complimenting her string technique from earlier. The demon corrects her answer to 80 humans. Despite the creature's stubborn denial, the swordsman notes that both of them came from the west side of the mountain, and on that side, she had found 40 of the demon's cocoons. Shinobu adds that she isn't angry, but only trying to be as accurate as possible. When asked what the point is of checking this information, Shinobu tells the elder daughter demon that in order for them to be friends and to satisfy those who have died, she'd have to endure punishment, explaining in gruesome detail what she had in mind, adding that the creature won't die from it, so there'd be no after effects. Enraged, the demon attacks Shinobu again, but the demon hunter quickly bypasses her, simultaneously landing her insect-breathing butterfly dance, caprice attack on the creature. She laments the demon's poor choice, turning and subsequently watching as the creature collapses. Shinobu tells her not to let her guard down just because she can't cut the demon's head off, since, she explains, that she utilizes poison as her weapon instead. Shinobu then introduces herself as the Insect Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps, stating that although she may be the only one among her order to not possess the ability to cut off a demon's head, Poison that can kill the creature is still a potent tool. She then apologizes, realizing that the daughter demon is already dead and couldn't hear her explanation. Shinobu then proceeds to cut open the demon's silk cocoon, freeing Murata. She asks him if he's alright, and he asks what happened to the older sister demon, to which she answered that she had already killed the demon with poison from the wisteria flower, commenting afterwards on how lucky he is for only having his clothes melted off by the creature's attack. She later attempts to attack Tanjiro Kamado and Nezuko Kamado, but her attack is deflected by Gyu. She questions his interference, noting that if he continues this course of action, everyone would hate him. The Insect Hashira asks her fellow demon slayer to get out of the way, apologizing to him when he replies that he isn't hated. She then turns her attention to Tanjiro, telling him that he's protecting a demon and that he should get away from her. The young demon slayer responds that Nezuko is his sister, causing Shinobu to take pity on her and to plan to kill her with a toxin that inflicts no pain instead. Gyu then instructs Tanjiro to run, which Shinobu notes to be a violation of Demon Slayer's conduct. Later, while being restrained by Gyu's arm, she laments that she had been in the right to come kill demons and therefore had broken no rules, but noted that Gyu had, asking him what his intent was. Her fellow Hashira remains quiet, prompting her to angrily ask him to say something. Gyu replies that it had all started 2 years ago, causing Shinobu to note that the length of time was a problem and wonder if he was holding a grudge because she had said he was hated. She then extends a blade from her right shoe and prepares to attack Gyu, only to be stopped by an important message from a crow which said that Tanjiro and Nezuko are to be restrained and brought to headquarters instead. Later, at the headquarters, the Demon Slayer stood alongside her fellow Hashira in front of a restrained Tanjiro. Rehabilitation Training Arc. She quickly informs the confused youth where he is, and that he's on trial for violation of the Demon Slayer Conduct Code. When Obanai Iguro points out that Gyu Tomioka had also committed this crime and asks how they are going to deal with him, Shinobu tells him that they'd think of a punishment for him later, since she's more interested in hearing Tanjiro's story. She gives the youth some water when he starts coughing, asking him to tell them his story, and also informing him that the water contains a painkiller. Shinobu tells him not to strain himself, as his injuries are still present. She then listens quietly as Tanjiro explains his sister's circumstances. Shinobu continues to listen to Tanjiro's story, but his dialogue is interrupted by the sudden appearance of Sanemi Shinazugawa, who grabs Nezuko's box. She warns her fellow Hashira not to act on his own, but he ignores her warning, stabbing the trapped demon with his sword, much to her displeasure. She then watches as an enraged Tanjiro charges at the Wind Hashira, and afterwards looks at an apologetic Mitsuri Kanroji. Then, Shinobu's leader, Kagaya Ubuyashiki, arrives, causing her and her fellow Hashira to bow in respect. Kagaya then asked for all of them to accept Tanjiro and Nezuko, surprising Shinobu, who remained silent as her fellows argued over the decision, and as Kagaya's assistant read Sakonji Urokadaki's letter. Shinobu continues her silence through even more arguments, but is shocked as her leader reveals that Tanjiro had come into contact with Muzan Kibutsuji. She and her fellow Hashira are then halted from further debating by a simple gesture from their leader. The Insect Hashira remained silent as Kagaya explained more of his reasoning for pardoning Tanjiro and Nezuko. Shinobu then cautions Tanjiro from using any of his breath techniques while pinned by Obanai, as his lungs might explode from the pressure. She calls out his name in alarm as he ignores her advice and tries anyway. After the incident with Sanemi and Nezuko is resolved, she listens quietly as Kagaya explained the dedication of the Hashira to Tanjiro. With everything resolved, Shinobu suggests that they take care of Tanjiro over at her place, instructing the Kakushi to do this, then waits for Kagaya to start the Hashira meeting. After the meeting has ended, she visits Tanjiro and his friends at the Butterfly Estate, asking them how they're doing and instructing them to begin their rehabilitation training. Infinity Castle Arc. Inside the Infinity Castle that Muzan Kibutsuji had created after Oyakata's suicidal move, Shinobu enters a room and discovers Doma eating a group of his own female disciples. When he finally notices her, Doma reacts with delight at having another meal walk right into his room, and thanks Nakime. One of his disciples, still alive, begs Shinobu to save her, and Domu, irritated by this, attempts to finish her off, only for Shinobu to jump in and save her. She asks the young woman if she's alright, but before she can answer, the young woman explodes and dies right in front of her eyes. Shinobu is angered by this and by Doma's insistence that he saved the girl by killing her. She then notices a pair of sharp fans that Doma uses as his main weapon, and angrily inquires if he remembers the Haori that had originally belonged to her elder sister. Doma finally remembers her by the butterfly wing design Haori that Kanai once wore, and playfully expresses his disappointment at not being able to eat Kanai due to the sun rising, which further angers Shinobu. The Insect Hashira swiftly launches an attack at him using her insect-breathing Dance of the Bee Sting, True Flutter, to inflict a powerful stab directly in Doma's right eyeball, which impresses him since he couldn't block it. Although he's initially dismissive of her since he correctly guessed that she lacked the physical strength to cut off a demon's head, he becomes excited upon learning that Shinobu's true strength lies in poisoning her opponents. Shinobu hopes that the poison would be effective enough to kill him, but then learns, much to her disappointment, that Doma had already received information regarding her poison from her battle against the spider family of lower rank 5. Doma manages to break down and render her poison non-lethal, healing himself from her attack. She's further backed into a corner due to Doma now rapidly developing antibodies and adjusting his body against her poison, so that, after a mere 5 slashes and injections of poison, he's now entirely resistant to it. Also, due to his blood demon art of frozen mist, it's becoming increasingly difficult for Shinobu to breathe. Now hedging her bets on injecting a large dose to kill him by using a 6 stab attack, Shinobu strikes him using insect-breathing Dance of the Dragonfly, Compound Eye Hexagon, and successfully hits him. However, as she attacks him, he simultaneously attacks her, cutting both her collarbone and ribs and puncturing one of her lungs. Finally near her wit's end, and almost losing any hope of victory, Shinobu attempts to draw strength from replaying her older sister's words of encouragement in her head. She then prepares to strike at Doma again, despite her serious injuries and the immense pain she's in. She attacks using insect-breathing Dance of the Centipede, 100-legged zigzag to confuse him. She strikes Doma directly through his neck, impaling him and sending him flying towards the ceiling. Exhausted and wounded, Shinobu thinks she's triumphant upon seeing Doma being poisoned and seemingly dying from her attack. However, Doma recovers almost instantly from her attack, to which Shinobu is further enraged. Now exhausted, fatally injured, and dangerously near death, Shinobu is caught by Doma as he falls down from the ceiling. He embraces her in a bear hug and begins to mock her and call her entire attempt to defeat him a waste of effort, assuring her that she'd live peacefully as a part of him and mockingly asking her for her last words. She spitefully curses him as he begins to kill her. In the end, she's absorbed by the upper rank, just as her disciple Kanao Tsuyuri arrives at the scene. Her death causes Kanao to go berserk in order to try and save her, only to be repelled by an irritated Doma, who tells her not to interfere when he's in the middle of absorbing someone. He successfully devours Shinobu's body until her butterfly-shaped hairpiece is the only thing left of her. However, it turns out that she predicted her death at Doma's hand. Thus, with the help of Tamayo, she had taken and absorbed wisteria flower poison regularly for over a year in the hopes that, if Doma consumed her, he'd also devour 37 kilograms worth of wisteria poison, which is nearly 700 times the lethal dose of killing a normal demon. She hoped this would be enough to kill the upper rank, or at least weaken him enough to be slain by her allies later. Ultimately, Shinobu's plan works, as Kanao, along with Inosuke Hashibira, manages to sever Doma's disfigured head from his body, fulfilling her revenge at last. Inside the limbo of death, Shinobu and Doma's head are conversing with each other. Doma finally shows emotion by saying that he's fallen in love with Shinobu and proposes that they go to hell together. She cruelly declines with a smile. Shinobu is last seen with her sister, Kanai, in giving their blessing to Kanao before happily reuniting with their parents in the afterlife. Later, 2 girls seen as the reincarnations of Shinobu and Kanai are seen attending an all-girls school in future Japan. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.